introduce them as they come up, keeping in mind that our main themes for today is having all of us the chance to participate in dialogue, to have input into the decisions that affect us, for us to be visible, for people from our communities having the opportunity to speak about their issues and able to input into the dialogue. Okay, our slogan is solidarity for humanity. We are here because we need to claim and put forward our dignity, our ideas, our participation. Our first speaker for the, okay, so let me first just explain the process quickly. In planning for this, we are asking the speakers to give themselves 15 to 20 minutes for the inputs, after which we will take 10 minutes to have questions, any questions that you may have on the speaker's inputs and any ideas you wish to participate. I will indicate, when it's going on too long and when we should stop for every section so that we can take a pause, reset the Zoom and reset the recording, and then we'll start with the next speaker. Our three speakers for today are Errol, which, I'm sorry, did I pronounce that correctly? He is famous or known for being a guide for teachers and parents to build better relationships. If you are ready, Errol, could you start your presentation, please?
Welcome. Thank you for that. Thank you for sisters, mothers, comrades. Thank you for inviting me to be the thorn amongst the roses today. Let me just share my presentation. Is the presentation up on the screen?
Yes, it is on the screen.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll be talking today about child protection and the proposed or the sort of imminent Muslim Marriage Act in the context of the Children's Act, the Divorce Act, the Bill of Rights, and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And, in introducing myself, I can say that, yes, I train parents and professionals in family law and child protection. But I guess if you ask the question, why do I do that? It has to do with my own sons. So I'm going to share a personal story, because sometimes I think it's important for women to know the other side of the domestic violence picture. I'd like you to think of two children. One boy is 1 year old and the other boy is 3 years old. Once upon a time, my wife saw me packing and she thought I was leaving her. She threatens to kill me. She threatens I will never see my children again. So she stabs me. But before she stabs me, she fetches the 1 year old to watch. After she stabs me, she calls the 3 year old to bring mommy a knife, another knife. He brings a knife and she sends him back a second time, saying the knife is too small to kill daddy. So obviously mom had issues. Mom was in a rage. Fast forward, I've spent 3 years going to police stations and counsellors trying to get a remedy without success. In the course of a very long divorce, the boy who was 1 is now 7 years old. He takes a knife to kill himself. The knife that he uses is one of the knives from the stabbing. Mommy gets someone to write a report to change the knife. The boys tell on her. She takes them away from me. She kidnapped them from school 2 days later. That was 16 years ago. Our system of family law has failed to fix the situation. So when I speak to you today, it's from the standpoint of experience of our Domestic Violence Act and the problems with it, the Divorce Act and the problems with it, the Marriage Act and the problems with it. So I'm speaking from a perspective of a father, but a parent, a guardian, who put children first, but was unable in our legal system, the way that it is designed, to make things right, to help my wife, my ex-wife, to find a place of peace and to bring my children to rescue. So when you listen to me, that's the perspective I'm coming from the other side of the domestic violence story, the other side of the child protection story. So if we have a look at the situation today in our law, in 3 days' time, there's a deadline will expire. The deadline was set by the Constitutional Court 4 years ago for a Muslim Marriage Act. That deadline, the first deadline was 2 years, that expired. It was renewed another 2 years, and it will again expire in 3 days' time without a Muslim Marriage Act being in place. Now the question is, why? Why is there no Muslim Marriage Act? The law is not complicated. And I'm going to suggest that the reason for the delay is money. Let's have a look at the law that led the Constitutional Court to require that Muslim marriages are recognized. It was this law, and I'll read it out for you. 9.3. The state may not unfairly discriminate directly or indirectly against anyone on one or more grounds, including race, gender, sex, pregnancy, marital status, ethnic origin, etc., religion. Between those three was enough for the Constitutional Court to say that Muslim families need to be recognized in their marriages. The Constitutional Court also referred to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, where, if you have a look on the screen, 16.1, men and women of full age are entitled to equal rights as to marriage, during marriage, and at its dissolution. And 16.3, the family is the natural and fundamental group unit of society and is entitled to protection by society and the state. I would like to put to you, and if you agree or disagree, we can see that in the chats. I'd like to put it to you that what 16 means is that moms and dads should have equal rights to their children in the marriage and in the divorce. Now, if you interpret that differently, I'd love to see that in the chat or in the dialogue afterwards. So what happened then in 2022 when the Constitutional Court ordered Parliament to create a Muslim Marriage Act? Well, the first thing that happened was the Marriage Act didn't happen, but Muslim marriages were entered into the Divorce Act. And we can see that in Section 3, a marriage, including a Muslim marriage, may be dissolved by a court. So now we know that even though there isn't a Muslim Marriage Act, marriages go to court to be dissolved. And what that really means, if you look at the next sentence in Section 3, is that a marriage may be dissolved by a court by decree of divorce. So what does that mean if Muslim marriages are now pushed into the divorce court? Well, there is a monopoly, there is a restriction on who can appear in a court. And that restriction is created by the Legal Practices Act, where 33, the section on the authority to render legal services, there are two parts to it. The one part gives lawyers a monopoly, so that squeezes out rivals like imams or family heads or mediators. And 33 removes price competition. It bans cheaper rivals. It kills off any rival industry that could compete with lawyers to take money out of the divorce process. What else did the Divorce Act say and mean for Muslim families? Well, if we look at 6.1, the family advocate is now involved, and the family advocate can also call in experts, and the parents must pay for that process. If we look at the rest of 6, I've highlighted it in red. The Divorce Act says that sole custody of the child is the default. And what that means, obviously, is that every divorce involving children now becomes a custody battle, a high conflict litigation battle involving lawyers on both sides, and potentially even a third lawyer if legal aid gets involved. So what we're looking at is that the recognition of Muslim marriages turned out to be entering Muslim families into the Divorce Act, and that turned out to be captured by profession and expensive. Am I speaking too quickly, too slowly? Am I speaking right? I apologize for my flu. Hello?
It's all good. Thank you.
That's fine. It's fine.
Thank you so
Carry
much.
on.
Okay. So on the one side, so that Constitutional Court exposed. So the Constitutional Court, I'm hearing somebody. The Constitutional Court then pushed Muslim families in front of the Divorce Act, but the Children's Act also applies. So let's see what the Children's Act says. So if you look at on the screen in red, you'll see 6.4. In any matter concerning a child, an approach which is conducive to conciliation and problem solving should be followed, and a confrontational approach should be avoided. And a delay in any action or decision to be taken must be avoided as far as possible. So now we've got 2 laws. The Divorce Act, which requires litigation and lawyers, and the Children's Act, which requires mediation and mediators. Which one prevails? It should be the Children's Act, because mediation and conciliation, problem solving is in the child's best interests, and the child's best interests should be paramount. But that's not how things are working in our law. Okay. And I don't want to point the fingers at lawyers. Lawyers are also good people. Lawyers also join law to make a moral difference. So I'm not pointing a finger at any individual. I'm saying the system, the legal system that we inherited from apartheid, is shaping behavior still today. So what was the legal system or the system of family law that we inherited from apartheid days? So on the slide, you'll see a list of acts, and all of them are during the apartheid era, 1948 to 1994. The Marriage Act, Maintenance Act, Legal Aid Act, Abortion Act, the Divorce Act, Child Care, Children's Status, Matrimonial Property Act, the Mediation Act, and the Prevention of Family Violence Act. They were all apartheid era instruments. And they all had a common feature. They were highly polarized, one-sided, unequal acts with default losers. And those losers always had to go to court to recognize and protect their rights. In other words, the system of family law that we inherit from apartheid era is one that pushes paying a lawyer to go to court. Well, we would have hoped that when 94 came and a new regime came, that a system of family law that was very one-sided would change. But what this table shows is that many of the major pieces of family law stayed. The Marriage Act stayed. The Maintenance Act in 1963 was replaced by Maintenance Act in 1998, but it didn't change. The Legal Aid Act was replaced, but it didn't change. The Abortion Act was changed by the Choice and Termination of Pregnancy Act, but it didn't change the law. The Divorce Act stayed. The Children's Act, we'll see, it has some benefits, but the primary features stayed the same. The Matrimonial Property Act stayed the same, the Mediation Act stayed the same, and the Prevention of Family Violence Act turned into the Domestic Violence Act, and the core features from apartheid stayed the same. My suggestion is that this continuity can be explained by the business model that was created during apartheid. Okay, so with 94 came our new Bill of Rights in 96, and the Bill of Rights was supposed to mirror the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and there are 4 big parts of the UDHR that we would hope to see in the Bill of Rights. Article 10 is the right to fair public trial. Article 11.1 is the presumption of innocence. 16.1 is we've seen already, the men and women are entitled to equal rights to their children. And 16.3, the protection of the family unit. The society and the state must protect families and not try to break them apart. So the question I'm putting to you is, these 4 key protections in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, are they in our Bill of Rights or not? And to anticipate your answer, they're not. And that gap, the failure to transmit those rights into a Bill of Rights, explains why our family law still looks like the apartheid era. What I'm going to do quickly is just have a look at the major pieces or the major areas of South Africa's civil law, our family law, and see what does that law say for parents, and did it change between apartheid and now? The Abortion Act, that was replaced by the Choice and Termination of Pregnancy Act, and the straightforward answer is that the old act placed the decision for the abortion in the hands of a panel. The father wasn't notified. The new act, still, the father doesn't have to be notified of the abortion. The grandparents don't have to be notified of the abortion. It's completely secret. But what the act is saying is that fathers have no right of contact, fathers have no right of guardianship, and that total erasure from protecting the child, the unborn child, and having a relationship with that child, that is built into the very first moment of the life cycle of a family. The father is cut off, and there's no act afterwards that ever restores that relationship for the father, or that authority for the father or the grandparents. The Marriage Act. So we don't have a Muslim Marriage Act, but we do have a Marriage Act, which of course then became supplemented by the Civil Union Act and the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act. Does that act give the parents equal rights to their children? The short answer is no. What does that mean? It means that we live in an attorney economy where if you want to have a relationship with a child out of the marriage, you have to go to court. You have to have a court that recognizes your rights. You have to have a court that go to court for an order to protect your rights. All of that requires going to a lawyer. The Children's Act, if there's any act that should stipulate that parents have an equal and enforceable right to their children, it should be the Children's Act. But actually, the old act didn't, and the new act doesn't do that either. In fact, Section 18, I'm going to put the text up on the screen. Section 18 of the Children's Act, parental responsibilities and rights, a person have either full or specific rights. What it's saying there is we have a 2-tier system of parental rights in this country. It's the very opposite of what 16.1 requires. And Do you remember when we were looking at section 9.3 of the Bill of Rights, and it said you can't discriminate by gender or marital status? Let's have a look at what the rest of the Children's Act does. Parental responsibilities and rights of the mothers. So the biological mom has full rights. That's a good thing. But let's have a look at something else. Fathers, married and unmarried. So now we are distinguishing between parental rights by gender and by marital status. And we can't do that if we are complying with 9.3 of the Bill of Rights. So in this 1920, married fathers have full rights, and unmarried fathers also have rights if they fit certain conditions. But before you, what happened was that when Muslim marriages were recognized, Muslim fathers moved from Section 21 to becoming Section 20s. They moved from legally unmarried to now legally married. But before this, let's have a look at Section 35. Section 35 is the section that makes it a criminal offence to interfere with the co-parent. But have a look at the bit in red. Contrary to an order of a court or a parental responsibilities and rights agreement. In other words, that was stamped by the family advocate. A father only has enforceable rights if there is already a court order or already a document that has been stamped by a government official. That's not the same thing as having an automatically enforceable right at all. It means that the father has to approach a lawyer to approach a court. Domestic violence. You heard me earlier say that let us not forget there are many terrible women out there that abuse women terribly. But it's not one way. There are men who are victims. There are women who also abuse substances and are affected by mental illness. So if domestic violence is not gendered, because mental illness can strike anybody, but the preamble to our Domestic Violence Act links domestic violence to gender. And I think that's dangerous. It explains why when I was reporting domestic violence for 3 years, the police laughed at me because I'm a big, strong guy. How could I be a victim? Okay. And also, if you look at the preamble to the Domestic Violence Act, it links any violence against women and children. It doesn't address what happens when the woman is the abuser. This didn't help me when I was saying, but my children are involved in a stabbing. Okay, so I want to point to a way that the Domestic Violence Act is being abused in divorces. So Section 7 of the Domestic Violence Act, I'll read it out, 7(1)(c). The court may use a protection order to stop somebody entering a residence that is shared between them, the shared residence. Okay, provided the court thinks that it's good for the complainant. But when a protection order, which you can get without a hearing by saying anything, evicts a parent from the shared residence, it is also giving them sole custody. So now you've got sole custody by stealth, and you've got vacant possession of the property. And in any divorce, the big issues: money, the house, and the children. So a protection order can, without a hearing, become leverage, become a weapon in the divorce. And guess what? That is how the domestic violence is being misused. Okay, so maintenance. Women have a maintenance court when men don't pay money. That's a good thing to have. My question is, where's the contact court when women withhold contact? And the answer is there isn't one. Our court system that we inherited from apartheid is one-sided. It stops people withholding money. It doesn't stop people withholding children. And a good, fair legal system should stop naughty people on both sides doing bad things. Okay, legal aid. Legal aid is restricted or restricts itself in terms of something called Regulation 13 from representing parties involved in three places: harassment, domestic violence, and maintenance. And I have to say that the 2 or 3 of those are the most misused of the court places. So the Legal Aid Act specifically withholds defense, protection from the places where, I'll have to say it again, where men are most abused. So now we have a legal system that is failing to protect, failing to offer a court in some circumstances, and failing to offer a public defense in other cases. Does this look like Section 9.3 of the Bill of Rights, where the state may not discriminate on the basis of gender? Okay, so I'm wrapping up now. I want to sum up. The Muslim community is caught in a machine that now requires litigating the divorce in a Western court for sole custody. And it doesn't have a Marriage Act that complies with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It doesn't have a Marriage Act that complies with the best of the Children's Act and the best of the Bill of Rights. So Muslim families are lacking certain protections, but that constitutional court ruling threw them to the wolves, pushed them into a Western-style divorce system, which is conflict-driven, and caused my son, when he was a young age, to protest the brutality of the divorce and threaten suicide. So I'm here to speak for the children and say Western-style divorces are inappropriately high conflict, are dangerous for children, and Muslim families have been thrown into that system. So the status quo, being exposed to the Divorce Act and not yet having a Muslim Marriage Act for protections, the Muslim community is now caught, is exposed, and the status quo is there are winners and losers in the current situation. The winners are lawyers and the experts that the lawyers hire to influence the court. The losers are children. The losers are good fathers and good mothers. Why? Because if you're a good mother, the other side can get a protection order without a hearing and exclude you. If you're a good father, the other side can get a protection order without a hearing and cut you out of your child's life. The losers in the current system are grandparents, siblings, the extended family, because even the Children's Act gives you no contact rights. In fact, the word grandmother, the word grandfather does not exist in the Children's Act. Who else loses? Imams. Religious authorities are replaced by lawyers by the Divorce Act and the Legal Practices by Act. Mediators, new partners. Doesn't matter if your husband or wife remarries and now you become a stepmom or stepfather to your children and they love you and you invest in them for years. The Children's Act never gives you an automatic right to that child. Okay, who else loses? The accused in any civil court, the middle class, the poor, and especially the rich, because the rich are the targets of a legal system or a system of divorce law that is really a mousetrap for millionaires. Okay, so what can we do? We can do a lot. I would suggest that the Muslim community mobilizes. I would say that instead of waiting for a lawyer-driven Muslim Marriage Act, create one, push for one, design one, push for it, push for a model act. And here I'm going to say that if the Muslim community produces a model marriage act that includes equality of rights to children for both parents, in other words, adopts the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopts the best of the Bill of our Bill of Rights and the best of the Children's Act. If the Muslim community creates a Muslim Marriage Act that then is a model for Western marriages and African customary marriages, then you can set the standard. You can actually lead the whole country in child protection and force changes to the Divorce Act that can protect all children in the country. So in practice, what does that mean? It means adding stipulations to the nikah. It means the stipulations when you authorize the marriage and you write down that rights to children are equal and enforceable. You stipulate in the nikah an anti-nuptial contract for the income and the property during and after the marriage, even a will for estate planning. You include a parenting plan for custody in and after the marriage. Just like we do an ANC for property we haven't earned yet, we do a parenting plan at the start of the marriage for children who aren't born yet. The imam or the mediator must be a default, must be written into any marriage dispute or divorce dispute. That mediation process must be written into a contract. Also, a cost transfer agreement. If anybody wants to step out of the agreement and litigate, they must pay for the cost of the defense. Include budget planning and a budget planning schedule into your stipulations. And then finally, that bundle of documents can be taken to the family advocate for free to be endorsed, to be stamped. And when the family advocate stamps the bundle from the nikah, it acquires the force of a court order. It is possible to integrate Sharia and Western law and to find a very happy balance. It requires the Muslim community to step up and to seize the opportunity being created by lawyers dragging their feet on creating a Muslim Marriage Act. The future is in your hands. Thank you so much for listening to me.
So okay, if you were wondering why you couldn't see Errol's face, it's because he was sharing his screen, and so